this time, we will open the hearing on House Bill 1373 and invite the clerk to read the title.
House Bill 1373 is a bill for an act relating to the definition of human being and person as the terms relate to the offenses of murder and assault and civil actions for death caused by wrongful acts.
Good morning, Representative VanWinkle.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Health and Human Service Committee. Again, my name is Lori VanWinkle, and I represent the wonderful constituents of District 3 out of Eastern Minot. I'm here to explain and provide testimony in support of HB 1373 and provide reasoning for why this bill to protect the lives of every preborn child from unjust and unconstitutional law is necessary. HB 1373 seeks to make it clear in our law that preborn children are human and shall be provided all the same protections, provisions, and rights as all other born people. This is a common sense bill. It will close a loophole that has allowed murder of innocent lives to continue in this state at will and on demand by any woman who desires to take a pill and kill her preborn child. Let's look at Section 1. This section adds definitions of human being and unborn child to North Dakota Century Code 12.1-16, the chapter on homicide, and provides an exception to unintentional deaths during a proper standard of care during pregnancy. It provides exception to unexpected death in effort to save both the life of the mother and the child during any life-saving scenario or complication. And it also provides an exception for a spontaneous miscarriage, which is obviously not willful death and thus not an abortion. Section 2 adds the same language in the code for our chapter on assault in North Dakota Century Code 12.1-17, and Section 3 adds the same language into 32-21 on wrongful death, which details the civil remedies that are available for a wrongful death accusation. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I will continue. In 2021, there were 1,002 North Dakota children murdered on demand by abortionists and mothers. In 2023, approximately 780 mothers left the state to have abortions, while approximately 221 of them ordered out-of-state abortion pills and took them in North Dakota to end the lives of their preborn child. Even after the exodus of Planned Parenthood, the total number of preborn North Dakotans murdered was approximately 1,001. This is effectively identical to the numbers in 2021, which shows that even while we had a partial ban on abortion at conception, there was no decline in the number of preborn children killed by their mothers on demand by alternate means. Despite this legislative body diligently paving a difficult path to successfully defund Planned Parenthood from attaining any more taxpayer grants or state wealth after passing the partial ban on abortion in 2023, and despite seeing them pack up their demonic agenda and head over the river and through the woods, the abortion pill remains completely accessible. And this loophole, if left unattended or neglected via opposing this bill, will invite them back in, and it will be worse off for North Dakota in the end than it has ever been before. It will bring back their evil agenda, and it will be doubling down along with the pill, and it will be full open provisions at will, on demand, for the destruction of lives and families. Let me make one more item clear. This bill is about outlawing the destruction of innocent human life, not the creation of it. Some want to make this bill about IVF, but nothing in the bill even mentions IVF. They don't like that the effect of recognizing life from conception would ensure IVF clinics treat human beings they create in vitro with a proper standard of care. But why would anybody be against that? Yet opponents lie about the bill. In fact, the entire narrative about IVF has been weaponized against this bill. It is a false narrative routinely employed by the abortion industry as a scare tactic to oppose a bill that would protect preborn life. We should not fall for this tactic. It should come as no surprise that Planned Parenthood is leading the charge against this bill, claiming it would, quote, undermine the rights of pregnant people, end quote, whatever that means. Don't fall for the false narrative. Planned Parenthood and this bill's opponents are opposing this bill because they want it legal to murder babies in North Dakota. We have a simple choice to make here today. You can either side with Planned Parenthood and their agenda of killing preborn on demand, or we can truly stand and support life and uphold HB 1373 and say no longer are we willing to see the shedding of innocent blood in our state. This is a stance of integrity, godliness, and justice. Supporting this bill is standing with we the people that say we are not willing to allow our emotions to be weaponized or our compassion manipulated and twisted to allow this carve-out and immunity for one portion of our population to murder another portion of our population without consequence. Because of depravity over the cultural nonsense of our day, there has developed a disregard of God's holy boundaries for sex and marriage, and this must be undone. We must not lie to men, women, and children any longer by telling them that sex is some extracurricular activity that has no boundaries. Sexual union was created for man and woman to enjoy at liberty in the holy union of marriage, period. The fact that outliers and disobedient exists does not change God's law and our moral directives. We must stop advising that when the results of this holy union are produced, that the response is go murder that preborn child and start over on your lusts, selfish ambitions, and vain pursuits of life. Good God Almighty, no. It has been a long time coming, but our eyes have been opened. Now there lies before us a great division and challenge because the truth is offensive. But let God be true and every man a liar, because God's word and our Constitution are supreme law and governor over this land. Murdering anyone should be illegal for everyone. This is a simple reality. Our laws must reflect that, and telling this truth in the context of abortion may be hard for some to hear, but telling the truth and steering one from murder is an act of love. To lie to your neighbor and lead them to murder is hateful and evil. I now see full well that if I deny justice and truth on this subject, I will be continuing to deny the very God I claim to serve and would be breaking my oath of office and denying justice to the innocent. And we each will individually stand before God, accountable for the justice or the evil that we allow from our position of leadership. Truth has continued to unfold the narratives I have even been told, which leaves me in a state of awe. I see every lie more clearly, and if the murder of the preborn, aka abortion, was really about justice for rape and incest, then why, if the woman has so much power, have we not given her the ability to kill the perpetrator, and instead we said kill the innocent baby? This is a manifest injustice. Law has allowed the criminal a carve-out of immunity, but has given an innocent baby a death sentence. And if this was about the health of the mother, why do we murder the baby? With all our epic medical advancements that doctors could safely and reasonably plan an earlier delivery, emergency C-sections occur all the time. We promoted fear instead of hope, faith, and reasonable law and justice. That's why. Did you know that the earliest known surviving baby was born at only 12 weeks old? This is beyond incredible, and it proves it is unneeded to kill a baby in every circumstance where a mother's life may be at risk. However, should that instance occur, this bill has thoughtfully covered that area and allows doctors to intervene to save the life of the mother if ever needed. I am an insulin-dependent person and have had 4 high-risk pregnancies. I thank God I never listened to my doctor's fear tactics and instead trusted and prayed, because I know that God is the author of our days and no one was going to suggest that I worry. I have had 5 difficult pregnancies. Sorry, I kind of said that wrong. That produced 4 amazing and incredible children and 1 unfortunate miscarriage. The false claim that this bill endangers the lives of mothers is a scare tactic to distract us from the truth. A broken heart no man can bear. Are we willing to continue to lie to women and girls and tell them the concerns over their future are solvable with murder, and effectively sign them up for a brokenness that they will only know once it's too late? I mean, what happens when life goes on and they can't pay their mortgage in the future, or they lose a job? Should they murder someone there too to bring justice to their unfortunate and unplanned event? Should women just be allowed to kill at all times and whenever life is difficult? Maybe instead we instill faith, hope, and love instead of deadly fear, and we tell them the truth that life is difficult, and difficulties are a guarantee. But if we look to the Lord and loving support from families, churches, industries, and ministries, there are many who offer free services and help to those in times of trouble. We can turn off the cries of the innocent blood that never stops crying out for justice. Please incline your ears to hear, as those who will speak here today are speaking deep and undeniable truths, which may convict and offend everything we have been told in life so far. Because for 52 years, we have allowed a foundation of lies with an intentional hope to weaponize compassion so that an unjust and unconstitutional ruling could wreak havoc over our state and nation. This terrible ruling, until recently undone, has been one of the most egregious crimes against humanity we have ever known. We are already at a staggering 4 million murders by abortion worldwide this year, and it's only February. Let that sink in. 46 million more will die globally, according to the statistics for the year's end. Please stand with those of us today who dare to side with truth as we declare and decree it is time to stop the shedding of innocent blood in our state, and it's time to repent of this great evil so that we may receive God's mercy instead of judgment. Because to continue this path is to side with opposition that says yes to the murderous agenda of Planned Parenthood. If the blind continue to lead the blind, both will fall into a pit. But I remind you, each of us is individually accountable for the choice made here today. No pastor, no agency, no one next to you, no one except for yourself will stand before God to answer for the deeds done in our life. Many may hope to justify siding with Planned Parenthood, but there is no biblical and no constitutional excuse we can hide behind that allows this depravity to continue. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for reserving the hour for testimony in support of HB 1373. I have 4 speakers following my testimony because you all should have gotten Abby Johnson, who is a strong supporter of this bill, her video. We were unable to play that today. And she tells her story about being a post-abortive woman and an ex-abortionist with Planned Parenthood. And the regret she has is immense for the things that she has witnessed by this horrendous act. Next, following me, you'll hear from Jenna Cross, who is a professional in the counseling setting who deals with the results of women who kill their preborn children. Then we'll hear from a voice of one of our local legislators' wives, Miss Jod Clemens, of her life experience with the effects of abortion. And Bradley Pierce, a constitutional attorney, Lori Hins, and Amber Vibeto, the constituent who helped orchestrate bring this bill forward. And if time permits, anyone else. I ask you, please, hold your questions on a piece of paper. If they don't get answered by my speakers, I will return at the end for any questions. Thank you. I turn it over to Jenna Cross.
Before you step away, are there any questions for Representative VanWinkle? Okay, see none. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Ruby and committee members. My name is Jenna Cross, and I'm proud to have grown up in Fairmont, North Dakota, where my parents, siblings, and their families all still live and farm, and I'm a 2006 graduate from the NDSU nursing program. In addition to being a Christian, a wife, and a registered nurse, the joy of my life is being a mother of 6 children. My children are not, and have never been, an obstacle to my success. On the contrary, they are my success. And I think every one of you that's a mother in this room would agree with that statement. I'm thrilled that with HB 1373, my home state of North Dakota has the opportunity to lead the way across the nation in finally protecting the most vulnerable among us, the preborn child. My husband and I are the co-executive directors of Alliance Family Services, which is a large pregnancy help organization based in Wisconsin that consists of 3 clinics, a mobile clinic that we park in front of a busy Planned Parenthood, and a transitional home that provides safe housing to mothers and their children while we work toward a permanent solution. There are a few things that distinguish us from Planned Parenthood. The first is that we serve God, not demons. The second is that we actually care about women instead of exploiting them for financial gain. The third is that we believe it's wrong to murder innocent human beings, and it is our mission to speak that biblical, unchanging truth as lovingly and clearly as we possibly can with every woman we possibly can. Our staff is doing that right now at this very moment while I'm here with you. I'm going to talk about the word love for a moment because in this country, the word love has been co-opted to mean nice feelings, and that's something that it simply doesn't mean. Love means caring enough about someone to protect them from harm, whether it gives them nice feelings or not. I love my children. Therefore, I do not let them play on a busy road. I do not care the slightest bit how badly they would like to play on a busy road. I don't care how much they scream at me for not allowing them to play on a busy road. They cannot play on a busy road because I love them. They are well aware that there will be serious consequences if they ever tried such a thing, so they simply would never do so. Yet somehow, when it comes to abortion, we do not love the women and preborn children of this nation at all, because our laws reflect hate towards mothers and children, not love, and this must change. In our clinics, we see hundreds of women each year who are planning to have an abortion. We provide them with detailed and factual education, financial assistance, free medical care, and we advocate for them to choose life for their baby. Regardless of what they decide, we will continue to care for and help them, speaking the truth in love and praying for breakthrough in their lives. After the Dobbs decision in 2022, we saw something very interesting occur in our state, which has direct application to the bill before you today. In the first year following the Dobbs decision, the state of Wisconsin had a complete abortion ban that shut down all abortion clinics and restricted abortion to an even greater degree than the law that you have currently being held up by your Supreme Court. Sadly, in the year of this supposed abortion ban, we saw just as many women planning to have abortions in our clinics as the year prior, when there was no ban. There was absolutely no difference. The women we saw during that year, by and large, knew exactly how to obtain abortion pills, knew exactly what those abortion pills would do to their baby, and were more determined than ever to murder their child. The abortion lobby had recognized that the only targets of pro-life laws were abortion doctors. Therefore, they simply moved to equip the mothers themselves to murder their unborn babies without the middleman involved, and we have given them immunity to do so. And before you think, okay, we just need to stop abortion pills, restrictions on abortion pills in the United States are useless when there are multiple international organizations standing by to immediately ship abortion pills to any state and any woman that would like to take them, regardless of state law, with no ability for the United States to stop it. It didn't take us long during that year to realize that our supposed abortion ban had simply shifted the location of these murders as well as the murder weapon. Our law also served to make the abortions in our state unreported, giving the appearance of a decline in abortions. But if you put yourself in the shoes of the murder victims, I think you'll find that unreported murders are just as devastating as reported ones. My declarations of joy at living in an abortion-free state quickly turned into a severe reality check that not only did our law fail to give equal protection to the preborn, it actually didn't protect the preborn from murder at all. Your current law also will not protect preborn children from being murdered in North Dakota, which is why I am imploring you to immediately pass HB 1373 through this committee and give equal protection under the law to our most vulnerable preborn neighbors. You might think that the answer to ending abortion is more pro-life pregnancy clinics like ours. But the truth is, even when we are presenting the clearest ultrasound technology, sharing the most factual medical information, providing numerous financial and other support services, still 60% of women who come to us planning to have an abortion go on to have one. This is because it's not ultimately an education or financial issue. It's a matter of sin. And what would immediately change the vast majority of the minds of the mothers that we see is a law, just like HB 1373. Abortion would be off the table for them as an option in a moment, and we could move right along to helping them with their needs so that they can be great moms to their children. Pregnancy help clinics are amazing and crucial and will continue to be so after abortion is abolished. But pregnancy help ministries will never be able to abolish abortion. Only the law can do that. and that is why your job today is so crucial. The law is a tutor. Currently, the law in North Dakota is tutoring the consciences of women that it's wrong for an abortionist to murder her baby, but it's perfectly fine for her to do so by her own hand. This is an immoral and corrupt message that Planned Parenthood is extremely happy with. What you are about to hear in the testimony against this bill is a collection of empty platitudes meant to weaponize your emotions, to consider everyone but the actual victims of these crimes. Pay attention to the ways that opponents of this bill try to manipulate you into believing that it's mean and unloving to do the best possible thing you could do for women, which is allow the law to inform their conscience that they must not murder their living, precious baby. As was mentioned, Abby Johnson submitted a video testimony. Her story and why she supports this bill is because she had an abortion, and she states that if a bill like this would have been passed in her state, if it would have been a criminal act for her to have an abortion, she never would have had one. And if she never would have had her first abortion, she never would have entered Planned Parenthood to work there. And if she had never worked at Planned Parenthood, she would not be living with 22,000 lives killed during the time that she worked at Planned Parenthood on her conscience still to this day. And if she wouldn't have worked in Planned Parenthood, she wouldn't have gone on to have her second abortion. So all of that could have been prevented if there had been a law like this in her home state of Texas. She says in her testimony, we are not doing the unborn justice, and we are not doing their mothers justice when we allow them to walk into abortion facilities and take the lives of their children. We are telling women that abortion is normal, and we are allowing them to go on to make a decision that will haunt them for the rest of their lives. We must do better. Like a good parent ignores the emotional manipulation of their children in order to do what is truly best for them, protecting them from situations where their lives could be instantly destroyed, you have an opportunity to hear the opposing arguments for what they are: manipulative and evil nonsense. You cannot be pro-life and oppose this bill because this is the only bill in North Dakota this year that will actually protect preborn human life. You certainly cannot be a Christian and oppose this bill because the Bible says we must speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. On behalf of preborn children who cannot yet speak for themselves, they would be asking every professing Christian in this room who is opposed to this bill why you will not fight to give them equal protection under the law, the same protections that we all enjoy. You cannot say on one hand that women are strong and capable of doing hard things, which we are, but on the other hand say that women cannot do the very thing that God created women and only women to do, which is bear children. You cannot say on one hand that women are highly intelligent, which we are, but on the other hand say that with all of the information and technology available at our fingertips every second of the day, we have absolutely no idea that when we become pregnant, we are pregnant with our own living, precious human baby. This is ridiculous. Of course we know. As a woman, I'm asking you to stop patronizing us with these contradictory arguments. We have agency. When we are willfully choosing to murder our own children, it is because of a conscience that has become seared. And we, as American women, desperately need our consciences to be informed by the law. Anyone who is opposing this bill is actually supporting and contributing to the rapid moral decline of our nation. If you say that you love women, then this bill is how you can actually show that. It is the most loving thing you can possibly do. I have numerous friends who are post-abortive. Like Abby, all of these women say that they wish abortion had been a criminal act in their state when they aborted, because if it had been, they never would have aborted their baby. With your actions today, you can be a part of sparing mothers a lifetime of guilt and regret because you helped to rightly inform their conscience with the law. With your actions today, you can protect real, live sex trafficking victims whose pimps use the legality of self-induced abortion in North Dakota to pressure them to take abortion pills, amplifying their abuse. You can stand with victims of sex trafficking and other unspeakable abuse by voting yes on HB 1373. With your actions today, you have the opportunity to recognize the force of momentum that is behind the abolition of abortion movement and to lead the way for the rest of the nation. You've probably noticed that courageous actions of elected officials are immensely popular right now. Doing the right thing that nobody said could be done is being done every day to uproarious applause. And yes, also pushback. But that is the nature of being willing to get into the ring and do what's right. The Christians of this nation will have your back. You can put a stake in the ground right here in North Dakota and say, no more abortion. Your constituents and the future constituents whose lives can be protected by you today will be grateful, and the living God will reward your courage. Next, you're going to hear from the wonderful Jod Clemens.
Before you step down, are there any questions for Ms. Cross? Representative Dobervich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Cross, thanks for being here today. Does Alliance Family Services provide any services in North Dakota? And if so, what services and where?
No, ma'am, we do not. We operate in Wisconsin. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Anything else?
Further questions? Representative Frelich.
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Cross, do you know how many other states have adopted this language into their law? Or is that a question for another speaker coming up?
No other states as of now.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Morning.
Okay. Thank you, Ben, for passing out my testimony. Okay. I'll keep looking at Karen Anderson. She's got a familiar face to me. So, Chairman Rumi and members of the House of Human Services Committee. Excuse me. I am Jod Clemens. I'm from West Fargo, and I am here in support of House Bill 1373. First of all, let me tell you what I am not. I'm not a professional lobbyist, so grant me a little grace up here. But what I am is I'm a wife, I'm a grandma, and I'm the mother of 5 children. 4 of these children are living. My other child lost his life when I walked through the doors of an abortion facility and tragically ended the life of my unborn child. At the time of my abortion, I was 22 years old. I had completed college, and I was teaching school, and I was a coach. I learned of my pregnancy when I made an appointment to go visit my doctor, as I was not feeling well. Well, this doctor examined me, and he told me that I needed to go over to the hospital because he wanted to hospitalize me overnight, which really made me feel like there must be something tragically, seriously wrong with me if he was going to hospitalize me. Well, early the next morning, that doctor came into my room, dressed in his white coat, leaned over my bed, and looked directly into my eyes, and he said to me, "Well, young woman, the reason that you are so sick is because you are pregnant." And without even taking a breath, that same doctor leaned over my bed, looked directly into my eyes, and he said, "But you do know you can have an abortion." Now, quite frankly, I was a woman who knew very little about abortion. Abortion was not a topic that was discussed in my family or among my friends. Yet now I felt as though my doctor had diagnosed me with what was wrong and was giving me a prescription on how to solve my medical condition. There was no discussion about the humanity of the child in my womb. There was no discussion about the gestational age of my baby. There was no discussion about the development of the child in the womb, and no information about the possible emotional, physical, and spiritual aftermath that abortion could possibly have on a woman. But this is what I was told, that if I would go ahead with this abortion, that my life would return to normal, and yes, I could have a real life with a real future. That was the beginning of the lies that I was told. The father of the baby made the appointment for my abortion. The father of the baby paid for the abortion. And the father of the baby accompanied me to the facility and remained in the facility until my abortion was complete. Once inside that facility, let me tell you a little bit about it, the abortion facilities. That is not in my notes here, but the first thing you do when you walk in the door is lay down your money. This is a money-making industry, and they make their money off the death of children and abusing women. You lay your money down, and you get a stack of papers to sign. You're handed a pen, and most of us, I will speak for myself. I put my name on the papers, and I signed them, but I never read one of them. Looking back now, I regret that because I know I was signing a consent paper for some well-paid stranger to invade the very sacred territory of my womb where God himself was creating life. You do not meet the physician that performs your abortion before you go back into the procedure room. That is when I met the physician that was going to perform the abortion on my child and in my child's life. I don't remember much about the procedure room, but I do remember one thing that has stuck with me to this day. I remember during the procedure how casually the doctor and the nurse were chatting with one another. And I remember distinctly during the procedure when I turned my head to the side, and it was like a well of tears erupted within me as I came to the realization that what I was doing to my baby, and that my baby was now dying or dead, and what I had done, my friends, I could never undo. Nor can any woman who goes through with this procedure. My decision to end the life of my child was irreversible. And as I lay on that table, there was a sense of justice that arose within me that could not be silenced. For you see, I knew my innocent little baby had just died, and me, the guilty, was going to go unpunished. My baby had committed no crime. My baby had committed no offense. And my baby had no mode of self-defense. My child had a fundamental and a constitutional right to life. My child was entitled to equal justice under the law. But my child was denied that. While I left that abortion facility, I also left the father of the baby. I also left my teaching career. All the reasons that I chose abortion were gone the minute I walked out of the doors of that abortion facility. And I lived for the next 10 years of my life with undealt sin in my life. Because you see, women who have abortions believe this sin is so big and so bad that even God will not forgive them. I lived with unresolved guilt, and I lived with a sense of justice that cried out to be satisfied. There's so much that I would like to say at this point because I lived with so much of this unresolved guilt, unresolved sin in my life. Because there truly was a sense of justice that would not stop haunting me. And that is true with so many women who had abortion. Because you see, we can walk into these facilities, these death chambers, and pay for some well-paid stranger to abort our children. But that does not satisfy this crying out within us that knows an innocent person died and we are going unpunished. And that is the role of civil government. That is the role of you in this room, to establish civil government. And yet we walk into these places and we walk out Nothing. It's legal. We can just kill our children and walk out. And that is so contrary to the law of God. Well, eventually, through the mercy and grace of God, I was set free from the pain and grief of my abortion. And since then, I have devoted my life to assist women suffering the aftermath of abortion. When I learned of House Bill 1373, I knew I needed to testify in support of this bill. In spite of all the lies and gaslighting that's surrounding the content of House Bill 1373, I'm finally thankful that we are here to testify to the true intent of this bill and to dismantle the fear and the scare tactics and the gaslighting that has been spread about the true intent of this bill. So let me help you, if I can, understand the lies, the myths, and the truth. Here's a myth. This bill wants to criminalize women and only wants to hurt us. Here's the truth of this bill. The truth is, this bill simply recognizes unborn children as human beings, which will, listen to this, save many women from the turmoil they will experience by ending the life of their child. This bill will deter women from going through with an abortion. You will be saving the lives of children, and you will be helping women escape the aftermath of abortion. Here's another myth. This bill bans IVF. Here's the truth. This bill does not ban IVF. People can still be available to use IVF. The embryos of children created through IVF will have equal protection and justice under the law. In fact, I believe this bill further protects these embryos in the case of any kind of malpractice or unethical actions. Here's a myth, a lie. This bill is anti-science. That's what they're telling you. It's a myth, it's a lie. Here's the truth. 96% of biologists across the globe agree that human life begins at fertilization. So this bill is pretty much pro-science. It is also terrible health care to kill a human being and convince a woman that she's going to be perfectly mentally and emotionally healthy after this. Here's a myth. Well, why do we even need this? Because there's no abortions happening in North Dakota. The truth is, currently we do not have a freestanding abortion facility in North Dakota. But abortion is very much happening in our state via the abortion pill. Also, our trigger bill was thrown out by a judge and is being fought in the courts. So as of right now, to my knowledge, abortions are very much happening in the state of North Dakota. If abortion would have been illegal, I want to speak for myself again, I would have never, ever had an abortion. If there would have been a penalty for a woman to have an abortion, I work with women who have had abortions. I've worked with women for years now, since I was healed. And none of these women would have had an abortion if there would have been a criminal offense, if they would have been charged with the crime for doing it. They would not do it. They wouldn't do it any more than I could convince them to say, do you want to go rob a bank with me? No, why aren't they going to do that? It's against the law. Laws deter people from committing crimes. Laws deter women from having to live with the aftermath of what I lived with and what thousands of women live with. This law will prevent that. I would have never had an abortion if my child would have been legally protected and received equal justice under the law. The truth was, friends, my child would still be here today. I have a missing link in my family because of the decision that I made. And my heart would have one last wound in it. And I would not have this sense of unmet justice that continues to weigh on my conscience today for taking the life of an innocent human being. This bill is about equal justice under the law from the moment of fertilization. So I urge you, as a committee, to support House Bill 1373.
Before you step away, Ms. Clemens, are there any questions from the committee? Sorry, I was reading along with your testimony. I thought you were going to finish out that last paragraph, but further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Yeah.
Further testimony and support?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for your time and this opportunity to speak with you. My name is Bradley Pierce. I'm the president of the Foundation to Abolish Abortion. I'm an attorney, and I can answer any questions about legal aspects of the bill. But before I'm an attorney, first and foremost, I'm a Christian. That's the most important thing about me and the most important thing about everyone in this room, whether or not you are a Christian, because even as legislators, you are subject to God. He is the King of Kings. He is the Lord of Lords. Hopefully you submit to that, but even if you don't, he still is the King of Kings. And what he says is what's most important here, and that's exactly what we should do, and that's why we're here above any other reason. He says you shall not murder. He makes it clear in his word that abortion is murder. In fact, it's called child sacrifice in Scripture, and we see that it's one of the chief reasons why God brings judgment upon nations, even the nation of Israel ultimately in Scripture, because they engaged in child sacrifice, causing their own children to pass through the fire to Molech. And God says that when innocent blood is shed, that innocent blood pollutes the land, and then that blood then cries out to God for justice. And Leviticus 20 tells us that there must be justice for child sacrifice. And God says that if the people of the land do not provide justice for child sacrifice, then God says, then he will provide the justice, and then he will judge those who commit it, and he will judge the people of the land who tolerate it. And that's what's going on in our country today, and that's one of the chief reasons I believe, it's very clear, why we are experiencing a whole lot of judgment in this country. And it's because of this, because we are not doing justice to the fatherless, and we are tolerating and allowing and explicitly providing immunity for those who commit child sacrifice in our country. God says you shall not show partiality in judgment. He says repeatedly throughout Scripture. He says that he himself, he is not partial, which means that he does not discriminate against people just based upon whether they're male or female or black or white or born or not yet born. And he says that we in our laws, we should not show partiality either. Our laws should, as Jesus puts it, love our neighbor as ourselves. Are we all glad that the law protects people or protects us from someone committing homicide against us, from someone murdering us? I'm grateful for that law that keeps people from doing that, that deters people like we just heard about. Well, if we truly love our preborn neighbors as ourselves, then we should want the same laws to protect our lives to protect their lives. We should not want someone to have a license to kill them or blanket immunity for them, so for someone to take their lives. So that's what it means to love our neighbor as ourselves when it comes to our laws. And this is not just God who says do not show partiality, but the way we put this in our law in this country is equal protection. We call that equal protection. The 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution says that no state shall deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. And the pro-life movement has been saying for 52 plus years that preborn children are persons, they're human beings, those terms are synonymous, and we believe that. But we haven't been acting like it. We have not been treating them like persons with our laws. We've been denying them equal protection. And even in the Roe versus Wade case, the court pointed out to the attorneys that were arguing against abortion and said, your own laws, even at that time, do not provide equal protection. So you're not going to treat them like persons. We're not going to treat them like persons. We have to have equal protection of the law to submit to the Constitution and follow the Constitution. That just means that the same laws that protect our lives protect others, right? Laws protecting life, liberty, and property, the 14th Amendment talks about, those should provide equal protection to all persons. What are the laws protecting life? Homicide laws, or in the civil context, wrongful death laws. All this bill does, it doesn't create any new law. It just says those same laws that protect the lives of born persons also protect the lives of persons who are not yet born. That's it. Same laws. So then our justice system can then be, as we've already heard, the law as a tutor, teaching people when life begins. Here's the value of life. The law can then deter people so that folks like Jody and all those that she talked about, or Jenna and all the women that she counsels, so that they will say, I'm not going to do that, because there's penalties that go along with that. That's the purpose of the law, not because we want to punish people, but because we want to deter people from committing evil. Then, though, if people do go through with it and commit that evil, then we have an entire justice system to examine each situation on a case-by-case basis to determine what is just in each situation. We have law enforcement. We have prosecutors who have discretion. They can give immunity. We have grand juries. We have juries. We have judges. We have appellate courts. We have a governor in this state who can pardon people. It's an entire justice system with so much due process built into it, that you have a right to an attorney, right to remain silent. You're presumed innocent until proven guilty. You have to be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and lots of defenses along the way. All of that justice system that protects our lives from someone murdering us should protect the lives of preborn children as well. That's all this bill's about. It's about saying each situation considered on a case-by-case basis, just like if someone murdered one of us in this room. Some may talk about coercion, that some are coerced into abortions. And this body passed in 2003 into law section 12.1-17-14 prohibiting coercing someone into an abortion. However, that just prohibits threatening someone with physical force into an abortion. Well, if someone goes and tries to convince someone else to murder one of us in this room, that's called soliciting a murder. It's a crime. And if that person goes through with that and murders one of us, they're now a party to murder, and they can be charged as a murderer, even just by soliciting or encouraging someone into committing murder. But whenever you write into the law that mothers have total legal immunity to commit abortion with impunity, what you've also done is now it's legal to pressure her into it. As long as you're not threatening physical force, which is illegal, as long as you're just saying, I'm going to break up with you, I'm going to break up, I'm going to cut you off financially, I'm going to kick you out of the house, etc., that's not illegal. It's not illegal to encourage someone or even pressure someone short of physical force. It's not illegal to pressure someone into doing something that's legal for them to do. And when you write into the law that mothers have total immunity for abortion, now you've written into the law that people have total immunity to pressure them into that abortion. That's not good for the child, and it's not good for the mother either, to put it very mildly. Something else, some will tell you that this bill is extreme. The people that want to say that are the same people who believe it's okay to murder children. That a lot of the pro-life movement, a lot of pro-life legislators, they may think, well, wait a second, hold on. This bill is going to be, this is extreme, because they're afraid of the Planned Parenthood and all of them coming out with their ads against you, saying like, you just want to criminalize, you just want to criminalize women. It's like, you've already heard, that's not what this bill is about. It's about criminalizing murder, criminalizing conduct, no matter who commits it. It's not about singling anybody out. It's about equal protection. But they want to call you extreme. They want to gaslight you into thinking that it's extreme to protect babies from being murdered. They're extreme. They want to murder babies. And the people who say that the law should provide immunity for mothers, that's extreme. Imagine if someone wanted to pass a law right now that gave someone, just because of their identity or their sex, total immunity to murder any of us. Wouldn't we call that extreme? We would call that ridiculous. And yet that's the state of our laws here today and in every state. But we act like equal protection is extreme. We act like it's extreme to make it illegal for everyone to murder anyone. That's not extreme whatsoever. But we let Planned Parenthood scare us into saying, oh, no. Look, we're not extreme. Look how not extreme we are. We're even going to give mothers total immunity to murder their children. We're going to say it's totally okay to do that. See, look how much we love women. It's like, what? No. We must not fear man. We must fear God rather than man. And we must love these children more than we fear Planned Parenthood. In conclusion, I'll read Psalm chapter 82, starting in verse 2, where God says, How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Give justice to the weak and fatherless. Maintain the right of the afflicted and destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. We would ask you to do your duty before God, to do your duty under the Constitution, and to vote yes for House Bill 1373. Thank you, and I'm open for any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Pierce? Representative Dobervich.
Thank you, Chairman Ruby, Mr. Pierce. Thank you for being here today.
Yes, ma'am.
So my understanding is you're an attorney, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So my questions are legally related to this. So my first question is, do you live in North Dakota? If not, where do you live?
I do not. I live in Texas.
Okay, and are you licensed to practice law in North Dakota?
I'm not.
You're not. Okay, thank you. Then may I continue? My third question is when I read this bill and I've listened to the testimony and read testimony online, this bill only applies to like 2-3 parts of our century code. So if we were to pass this law, we would not be, am I correct in thinking it would only apply to 3 sections, but we're saying that a fetus is a living person and should have equal protection, but we're not applying that to any other part of the code. Am I correct?
We're applying it to the laws protecting life, right? Equal protection of the laws protecting life, both criminal and civil.
But, may I continue? But no equality in other parts of the law, correct?
Do you have a specific part of the law? I mean, the bill only addresses laws protecting life, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Further questions? Representative Frelich.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I understand the bill, but I'm not really understanding how we're going to enforce it. And can you address that, and especially where it comes to the mailing of medications across state line for this? How do we enforce this?
Yeah, well, when it comes to the mailing of, abortion pills across state lines, that's something that is, not something that the state can really regulate since it's coming across state lines. There is a federal law over 100 years old that does prohibit that, not currently being enforced. But that's not really what's within the purview of this bill. It's not specifically about the instrumentality or the method that the homicide takes place. It's about the act of homicide, that is the commission of homicide with criminal intent, is what this bill is about. So enforcement of this would look like enforcement of any other law. First of all, the primary way that this gets enforced is deterrence, right? It enforces itself that, how do other murder laws get enforced, right? People just know, like, hey, don't do that, right? There's extreme penalties that are associated with that. And so we don't we don't commit murder. So that's the primary. And then as far as if someone does violate it, then how is any other crime, how does it get enforced? Someone reports that someone has committed a crime. Law enforcement does a preliminary investigation to determine whether there's probable cause to believe a crime has been committed. Then if they believe there's probable cause, then they can go to a judge and get permission, what's called a warrant, to do a more extensive investigation. If they believe that there's evidence from there enough that a prosecutor is willing to prosecute, take it to a grand jury, then the prosecutors have discretion to prosecute or to say not prosecute, or they have discretion to prosecute for a much lower crime, or they have discretion to also give immunity to in this instance, the mother to testify against someone pressuring her or something like that. And then the grand jury can decide whether to indict. And anyways, all that entire justice system, which has to be virtually unanimous at every stage before someone actually gets sentenced. That's what enforcement would look like.
Representative Hendrix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your testimony.
Yes, sir.
So one of the things that was mentioned earlier about the definition of life, more or less, as conception, which the bill is very specific on, is beginning at fertilization.
Right.
And my understanding in reading, what a lot of biologists believe, that is consistent, that most biologists do define human life at fertilization. So from a science standpoint, that seems very logical.
Yeah.
But as a lawyer, I'm sure you recognize it gets a little different with how conception might be defined in law. Like I know in Ohio it's defined as fertilization, and I am getting to a question here, but and I know in other states that's been part of the whole debate about abortion, right? Is at what point is conception defined? Is it implantation? Is it some point between that process of fertilization or implantation? A lot of states leave it ambiguous for different reasons, whether that's good practice or not. I'm just saying that's the circumstances. So I guess my question is, if we're looking at passing this as a practical matter of implementing it, the bill's very specific on those definitions. It's specific on the exceptions, which is good. But if we're opening up, in a sense, kind of a new category of abortion crime, do you think this framework is adequate without equal specificity when it comes to penalties and like prosecutorial guidance, if that makes sense? Like,
For example, I just pulled this up in North Dakota. So, like, say, first-degree murder, Class A felony in North Dakota, so be causing death during the commission of or attempted commission of certain felonies such as robbery, arson, kidnapping. Affirmative defenses may apply if the defendant did not directly commit a homicidal act or was unaware of others' violent intentions. Second-degree murder could be killing caused under extreme emotional disturbance with reasonable excuse, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but I guess I'm just trying to understand, like, how do you think practically this might be implemented, and do you think that the framework here is adequate to allow that to occur without more of those specifics, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, I get the questions. So on the first one, as far as fertilization, so most states that define it, or do define conception as beginning at fertilization. It's actually in the majority of states in the United States. We have, in many states it's called homicide, and a number of states it's called feticide, that if someone, kills a pregnant mother, right, then it's a crime. So if a man assaults his pregnant, girlfriend or wife and kills her, he's committed double homicide, or in some states it's homicide and a feticide. And then, or if you have a drunk driver runs into a pregnant mother, double manslaughter. There's 38 states that have laws like that already, but then they have written in, this doesn't apply to abortion, or this doesn't apply to the mother. And so we already have laws about fertilization, like in Texas. My home state of Texas defines like person in the penal code as beginning at fertilization. So there's already a lot of states that have that in place, and it hasn't really caused any problems. And again, here we're specifically defining it just for the purposes of the homicide law and wrongful death. We're not defining, for every other area of the law, which requires its own kind of case by case, like yes, we still need equal protection in those, equal protection of the laws, but, there's rational reasons why, things can, like children can't hold property, and things like that, what I'm saying, that we already make distinguishing. But what we're saying is it's the same law that protects people should protect them, no matter when they are. On the issue of the penalties, it's not something that needs to be addressed, right? We already have this entire framework in this state and in every state about, that has kind of this range of penalties for different situations. And those then, what you see about those penalties is it takes into account like the facts of the case, right? And it takes into account the heinousness of the act. It takes into account the mental state, of the party. Were they acting, in sudden passion, or were they acting in malice aforethought? The common law would say. But, all of that's taken into account in deciding, what's a just penalty. And so, because we already have all of those, kind of considerations built in, and for juries to already consider if it gets to that point, what equal protection is saying that exact same framework that's already there for the homicide of born people is certainly sufficient to handle situations involving the homicide of people before they're born too.
May I continue?
I'm going to let you know we have 5 minutes left for the proponents. So.
Okay. All right, I'll try to be quick. So thank you for that. So if I'm just trying to think of a practical example here, but bear with me. So if when you're dealing with murder and other, these crimes, as you say, already defined, and in trials in that process, intent comes up, obviously. And
right.
So, how would you envision this law dealing with, it's just theoretical scenario, let's say a woman has an abortion, let's say she's younger, on the younger side, and
right.
maybe she was, or she made the claim that she was sort of bullied or pressured into doing so.
Right.
And, her claim is that maybe her boyfriend pressured her to do so. Maybe the relationship ended. It was a bad situation.
Right.
And so her claim is that, really he's sort of an accomplice to murder and she's almost innocent in that situation. Or vice versa. I mean, how would you see
right.
that practically playing out in a court, potentially? Because I understand you're saying that
yeah.
it's that the courts will sort of sort it out, but if we're talking about passing a law, we have to think about how this might affect people practically.
Right. Yeah. Well, the situation like that. First of all, it's probably never going to happen or not never, but it's rarely going to happen in the first place for the reason we've already heard. Right. If you provide equal protection, it's going to deter. It's going to deter most from happening in the first place, and it's going to deter that boyfriend from pressuring because he knows that. Hey, I'm now soliciting a murder. I could be charged for that. If she goes and turns me in, now I could be charged for soliciting murder. So that's going to deter, not all. We live in a sinful world. People still commit crimes, but the vast majority of it, especially I think for folks who are younger. In that situation as well, even if it got to, even if someone did go through with it and they were in that situation. There's legal defenses of mistake of fact. I didn't know what I was doing. Or from a practical perspective, someone in that situation, what prosecutor is going to prosecute them, right? It's not going to happen. That's one reason we give prosecutors discretion, because then they can consider kind of, should we even go through with this? Or what grand jury of North Dakotans is going to say, yeah, let's, felony. That's just from a practical perspective, not going to happen, especially in this, in our current climate. And so, what prosecutors would probably do in this situation is say, hey, I'm going to give you immunity to the woman for her to then testify against whoever it is that's pressuring her. And that's the way the law should operate, to give the system that discretion to find out what's justice in each situation.
Representative Dobervich, do you have a question?
I turned my light off.
Okay.
Representative Davis does.
Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pierce?
Yeah.
As a lawyer, I'm sure you're well aware of the separation between church and state. And in your testimony and other testimony that has been given have been repeated testimony on Christianity. Yeah. So my question is, why should North Dakota be based on one religion beliefs, even though there are thousands of religions across the world, and the U.S. Constitution protects those religious freedoms.
Yeah, well, on the separation of church and state, that's a separation that says the church can't run the government and the government can't run the church, right? But it's not a separation of God and government. It doesn't mean that, God's, not still God, and that we can't talk about God, and that we can't even base our laws on God's unchanging moral standards. All law is based upon standards. It's just going to be who's, and you mentioned thousands of religions. I believe in the one true God, Jesus Christ, and who saves us. And so I believe that our law should be based upon that, not upon the law of false gods. And that's, I think what most people in this state and around this country also agree with. And so I think we should base our laws on that.
On one belief?
Absolutely, on the true belief.
Okay, can I have a follow-up question?
You may.
Thank you. So about the people have different beliefs than yourself, or no faith, in fact, who believe differently about when life begins, do you think those rights should be ignored then?
Well, I think the Aztecs believed that it was okay to rip the hearts out of children and offer them as a burnt sacrifice to their gods, and I think that should be illegal.
One more question, if I may.
You may.
Thank you, Chairman. Would you support allowing religious exemptions for those who do not believe life begins at conception?
Would you support a religious exemption for someone who wanted to do child sacrifice of a born child? I don't think
I'm
so.
asking you the
I don't think we
question,
should.
sir. Okay,
No, I don't
thank
think we should.
Thank you.
Representative Rios.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll try and bang these out real quick. Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Pierce. Would this bill ban the fertilization of human embryos through IVF? Would this bill ban the storage of human embryos through cryogenic freezing? And 3, would this bill ban the implantation of these fertilized human embryos?
No. No.
Okay. Representative Fegley, do you have a question?
Thank you, Chairman. As I read this bill, life is an inception of the fertilizing of the egg. And when I've heard from the IVF people that they have that egg, and when they inseminate that into the womb, the percentage of them surviving isn't really high. So that gives me the aspect. They know that not all those embryos are going to survive, so they're putting those embryos at risk. Is that going to be a problem with this bill?
This bill requires treating the human life with a proper standard of care. And so whether it's IVF or anybody else, we should be treating human lives as human lives and with a proper standard of care.
Further questions? Okay, see none. So I'm not going to count
Thank you, Chairman.
anybody that wants to get up and say they support the bill towards, we'll just adjust. So if there's anybody at this time that'd like to get up, we're not going to take testimony, but if you want to get up and you can hand out testimony still, but I'm just asking you not to read it.
I just want to quickly say that I have submitted mine online, and you can see it there. My name is Lori Hins. Do we have 3 minutes? Because
We
that's
don't.
how much. Are we done?
Yeah.
Okay. You can see my testimony. It is there electronically filed for you then.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, honorable members. My name is Brian Conwell. I come to you from the state of Minnesota, and I come to tell you that your women are coming to my state to kill their babies. So this law needs to be passed, and I stand in support of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, what was his name? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
Brian Conwell, did I say that right?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Amber Fibeto, Executive Director of North Dakota CAN. I just urge a do pass recommendation. I will just say that in my online testimony submitted, I do have a link that gives a vast just legal precedent that shows that the word person in the 14th Amendment did include the preborn. please do pass this bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Ben Easling, District 4 Chairman, Republican Party. Also standing here in favor of this bill as it do pass. I'm an abolitionist of abortion. My testimony is also online. I'd be honored if you'd take time to read it. It actually addresses some of the different questions about nations, governments, and historical facts of countries that have embraced child sacrifice and have denied equal protection to all humans. And there's actually catastrophic both possibilities of it moving from a people that have rational thinking to a depraved mind, worthy of consideration. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Committee.
My name is Colette Kramer. I'm from District 6. I'm here in support of House Bill 1373. I'm here for my adopted children. Their conception does not make them any less valuable as a person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jod Stewart. I also, Mr. Chairman and committee, have submitted a testimony. It does address some of the philosophical points that Representative Davis brought up. Morality is not subjective, otherwise calling the gulags evil, you couldn't objectively say that. So, yeah, I'd be honored if you read my testimony and do right in voting for HB 1373. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's John Rice Cameron from Belmont, North Carolina. I submitted some written testimony to you guys' website. Want to encourage a do pass recommendation for this bill. This bill, there's no pro-life justification for voting against this bill. This is a simple binary choice. Planned Parenthood's on one side and the side of life is on the other. So please do pass.
My name is Landy Kenner. I submitted my testimony online also. The children are our future. With abortion, there is no future. So the future is in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris VanWinkle, District 3. I just wanted to urge a do pass on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, see none, it's, call it 10:05. So at 11:05, we will end the testimony in opposition in the same manner. At this time, is there any opposition to House Bill 1373?
Chairman Ruby and members of the House Human Services Committee. My name is Representative Carla Rose Hansen, and I represent District 44. I'm testifying in opposition to House Bill 1373 today. House Bill 1373 is known as personhood legislation. It seeks to change the legal definition of a human being in North Dakota's murder and assault criminal statutes and our wrongful death civil statute by saying a human being is legally a person from the moment of fertilization. If passed, this personhood bill would have broad and negative ramifications related to health care, taxpayer-funded litigation, religious liberty, and legal consistency. One of the first concerns is on restrictions to pregnancy and miscarriage care. House Bill 1373 aims to ban nearly all abortions. There are narrow exceptions for diagnostic testing in miscarriage. It also includes an exception when saving the life of the pregnant person, but only if there are, in quotes, reasonable steps to save the life of the unborn child. That raises questions about what is reasonable and how a healthcare provider would handle pregnancy complications and emergencies. For example, there is not an exception for ectopic pregnancies, which are never viable and can result in the death of the pregnant woman. While miscarriage is listed as an exception, many women, including myself, twice have experienced incomplete miscarriages, which can endanger your life and health without medical treatment. As a result, doctors will hesitate to provide prompt care, waiting until women are near death because they will fear a murder or assault charge under this law. Another concern is restrictions on infertility care. Personhood legislation will make the practice of in vitro fertilization, known as IVF, impossible because of the legal risks. Hundreds of North Dakotans have used IVF to build their families after facing the challenges of infertility. This bill would take away their opportunity to realize their dreams of having children through the miracle of medical science. Another concern is the impacts to the healthcare workforce. It is already difficult to recruit and retain healthcare providers to North Dakota, especially in rural areas. If House Bill 1373 passes, doctors will fear being charged with murder or assault, and they will not want to work in North Dakota. As a result, the maternal healthcare deserts in North Dakota will become even greater. I also want to provide a clarifying point related to the elective abortion care in North Dakota. Planned Parenthood does not and never has operated an abortion clinic in North Dakota. North Dakota's independent abortion clinic relocated to Minnesota in recent years, so there is no elective abortion clinic in North Dakota. Another concern with this bill is that the legal fights that result from it will waste more taxpayer dollars. Passing House Bill 1373 will result in more expensive litigation. As background, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. Several courts blocked North Dakota's resulting trigger ban from taking effect while litigation proceeded. In March 2023, the North Dakota Supreme Court blocked this trigger ban. The North Dakota Supreme Court's ruling said women have the fundamental right to obtain an abortion to preserve their life and their health. In 2023, the North Dakota legislature replaced the trigger ban by passing Senate Bill 2150, a near total abortion ban. That law was struck down by the court as unconstitutional in September 2024. The state is appealing the decision to the North Dakota Supreme Court, which recently blocked the law from being in effect while the case proceeds. North Dakota has spent $800,000 so far defending these abortion laws because House Bill 1373 is even more extreme than Senate Bill 2150, and because it directly conflicts with the 2023 Supreme Court ruling, it will certainly result in more litigation. Let's not waste more taxpayer dollars by passing this bill. Another concern is the infringement on religious liberty. It's an age-old question. When does a soul or spirit enter a physical being? There are a wide range of deeply held beliefs regarding ensoulment. So as a result, religions have a range of nuanced views on abortion. Not every faith holds the belief that personhood begins at conception or fertilization. For example, in the Jewish faith, a fetus is viewed as part of the pregnant person's body. It is not viewed as an independent person until its first breath, which allows the soul to enter the body. By passing House Bill 1373, we are imposing one religious view on all North Dakotans, infringing on the religious liberty of people who do not believe that personhood begins at fertilization. Another concern is the lack of legal consistency. House Bill 1373 gives an embryo and a fetus the same legal rights that you and I do, but only in the context of 3 very specific statutes: murder, assault, and wrongful death. If one believes that the unborn deserve equal protection under the 14th Amendment, why doesn't the bill redefine human being across all state laws? For example, why shouldn't an embryo be counted as a tax dependent or receive child support? If the intention is to protect life, and so it's only about laws that protect the endangerment of the embryo or fetus, then why not manslaughter? Or how about getting a DUI, driving under the influence with a child in the vehicle? This bill is also too extreme for North Dakota. Since personhood legislation has so many negative consequences, this extreme law is out of step with what North Dakotans' views are. In 2014, North Dakota voters had the opportunity to amend the state constitution to say that the inalienable right of every human being at any stage of development must be recognized and protected. This personhood ballot measure in 2014 lacked any exceptions. And doctors said it would end IVF in North Dakota if it should pass. Because of these and other concerns, the personhood measure was soundly defeated by voters, with 64% of North Dakotans voting no. More recently, a poll in November 2024 revealed that 55% of North Dakotans opposed the state's near total abortion ban, Senate Bill 2150. That law includes very narrow exceptions, and the bill before you today is even more restrictive than that. So, committee and chairman, if House Bill 1373 becomes law, it would put women's lives and doctors' livelihoods at risk because it would restrict pregnancy and miscarriage care. It would erase the dreams of many hopeful parents by ending IVF in our state. And it would also infringe on religious beliefs and waste even more taxpayer dollars on litigation. People should have the right to make their own deeply personal decisions about if, when, and how they build their families without interference from us as politicians. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, please give House Bill 1373 a do not pass recommendation. Thank you.
Questions for Representative Hansen. Representative Bolinske.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Hansen, my question is around the ectopic pregnancies. So I'm wondering if you can explain how this bill would restrict that care if it's currently not considered abortion to remove an ectopic pregnancy because it's life-saving care.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Bolinske, the bill says that you have to take steps to try to save the life of the child in addition to saving the life of the mother. An ectopic pregnancy is fairly common. There are physicians here who can describe it in much more accurate detail than I, but it's when the pregnancy happens outside of the uterus, most commonly in the fallopian tube. So it will never result in a successful pregnancy. You cannot move that embryo into the uterus. It's not possible. So you cannot save the child, and it will create risk for the mother because of where it's at. So you can't just leave it there. And because there's not an exception for that specific situation, or other situations where the pregnancy has complications or it's doomed in some other way, there are concerns that the physicians would have that they themselves would be facing legal risks if they were to treat that situation. And I really don't think we want our physicians having to check the list of exceptions written out in Century Code before they provide emergency care in an emergent situation.
You may.
So why don't doctors have that concern now? Why are they able to offer life-saving care now?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Bolinske, right now, we have a lot of abortion laws that have been considered in North Dakota and are currently moving through the legal process of litigation. So historically, and again, there's probably some people behind me who can provide more details, but we have provided exceptions specifically for ectopic pregnancies, molar pregnancies, and other dangerous healthcare situations where doctors can use their professional judgment in that situation for when a situation is endangering the woman's life.
Representative Rios.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Hansen, would you say that you have a soul? And if yes, when did you get this soul? If no, why?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Rios, I do believe I have a soul, and my personal beliefs on when ensoulment happened for me are not relevant. This is about the laws that we're passing about when someone is legally a person, not when you are your religious beliefs believe you are a person. So this is about the legal standards and how our laws apply to either us as walking, talking people, or if this bill were to pass, before a human being is born.
You may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to follow up on that, if you believe you have this soul, and sorry for using that word, if you believe your body is a vehicle carrying this mysterious conscious, this entity, do you believe this soul, this mysterious conscience should be protected by the law?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Rios, I believe that people should have the ability to receive the health care that they need in the moment that they need it, and I trust our medical professionals to provide that care. This bill puts that at risk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This should be the last, sorry. If we ever get to the day, and I don't know if we'll get there, where science can establish and confirm that when a soul begins, when essentially, as some would say it, when life is created, would you ever consider yourself wanting to protect a fetus if science said, well, they have a soul already, we can prove it with A, B, C?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Rios, I am not sure how science can identify a soul. What we're talking about today is when our laws start applying to individuals. Do they start applying to individuals after they are born, or do they start applying to individuals before they are born? And so that's what's at issue today, is how our laws apply to individuals.
Representative Hendrix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Hansen, thank you for your testimony. Just to kind of piggyback off of Representative Bolinski's question, I wasn't clear about your answer on that with the ectopic pregnancies. I'm just reading under the exceptions in this bill, and it seems like, from my understanding of those circumstances, this language would cover that more or less as an exception already. So I'm just trying to understand, like, what specifically do you think this is missing?
Yes, Representative Chairman, Representative Hendrix, and Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee, the bill says that there has to be an effort to save the life of the unborn child. And so, in addition to saving the life of the woman, that has to be part of the effort. It is impossible to save an ectopic pregnancy, so that it is never going to be a viable pregnancy. And there are physicians here behind me that can provide more details on that.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Kiefert.
Thank you, Chairman Ruby, and Representative Hansen. I've got a few questions for you. The first one is the bill. The big question is, when does life begin? And we heard testimony this morning that the youngest surviving premature baby was delivered at 20 weeks. So if you don't believe that life began at conception, at what point of developing fetus between then and 20 weeks do you argue that life began?
I just want to clarify, it was 12 weeks, not 20 weeks, but.
12 weeks? Okay.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Kiefert, it was surprising to me to hear the statement that there was a baby that survived at 12 weeks. I do not know if that is a true statement. Right now, our laws say that you are legally a person when you are born. And so that is what is at the heart of this bill right now, is when do our laws apply to individuals, after they are born or before they are born. And so, of course, they are human beings. It is about when our laws have the application to you as a person.
You may continue. Representative Hansen, are you familiar with the term spark of life regarding the developing embryo?
I am not familiar with that term, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
If I could explain it briefly, this is a new discovery in the last few years that science has made studying the fertilization of an embryo, and shortly after the time of conception, there's an actual burst of light given off this embryo. And the scientists that worked on this, if you read the journals, they said they were in awe. They said it was breathtaking because what they believed what they were seeing was the beginning of life. And you can research this, Google it, Spark of Life, you can read all about it. And my final question, if I can continue, is you mentioned the Spirit. I wasn't going to bring up anything about the Bible or anything, but you mentioned the soul, I guess is what you mentioned. And the book of Jeremiah 1:5 says, God, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you before you were born. So what does this verse say to you?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Kiefert, I'm a Christian. I belong to the ELCA Church. This bill is about when our laws start applying to individuals. It does not it should not consider a specific religion's Bible or biblical text. There are many religious texts from a whole wide variety of religions, and so not all of them believe that life begins at conception or fertilization, or that personhood, that you should legally be a person at that moment. And so, while I might personally have a Christian faith and subscribe to that belief, I do not believe our laws should have that same application across all people.
Further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Further testimony in opposition of House Bill 1373.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Christopher Dawson, the co-director and general counsel of the North Dakota Catholic Conference. And I can tell you there is so much with which I disagree from the previous speaker, but the Catholic Conference also opposes this bill. The conference is firmly committed to building a culture of life by advocating for legislation that ends abortion and provides support for women in need so that abortion becomes unthinkable. Although we support some of the supporters of this bill desire to end all abortion, this bill is not an acceptable means to that end. The central problem with House Bill 1373 is the imposition of a criminal punishment on women who have abortions. The Catholic Church has consistently held that for pastoral, moral, and prudential reasons, the law should not criminalize the woman. In most cases, if not all, she is an abortion's second victim. Our experience as counselors, spiritual advisors, and caregivers to women who have had abortions tells us that the decision to have an abortion is often the result of intense pressure, coercion by others, and a fear-driven attempt at self-preservation, all in a culture of lies about the choices before her and a society that too often leaves her alone with her so-called choice. Criminalizing her only compounds the victimization and serves no purpose. Yes, abortion is a grave moral wrong. Not every moral wrong, however, demands a corresponding penalty in the civil law. Moreover, civil law must further a legitimate purpose and extend only so far as necessary to achieve the desired end. Since she is one of the victims, criminalizing a woman who has had an abortion does not further the interest of justice. To punish the woman as criminal is unnecessary. It is enough to extend criminal culpability to the abortionist, who is truly the wrongful actor. To say that a woman who has had an abortion should not be punished in the civil law does not mean that she has acted without fault. Her act is terribly wrong. However, compassion, not desire to punish, should be our guide and our response to her. We should be mindful of Christ's response to the woman accused of adultery. Neither do I condemn you. This compassionate approach to post-abortive women has been the approach of the pro-life community at large. Just before the release of the 2022 Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade, 75 pro-life leaders signed an open letter to state lawmakers urging them to oppose legislation that would criminalize or punish women for obtaining an abortion. The signatories include the U.S. Catholic Bishops, National Right to Life Committee, Susan B. Anthony List, the Pro-Life Action League, and virtually every major pro-life organization nationwide. The statement is attached to our testimony. Proponents of the bill claim that the 14th Amendment to the Constitution and Article 1, Section 1 of the North Dakota Constitution require that the state treat abortion statutorily the same as murder. They go so far as to say that failure to pass House Bill 1373 violates both constitutions. The claim has no legal merit. The U.S. Supreme Court has not held that unborn children are persons under the 14th Amendment. There is, as was mentioned, attached to one of the testimonies in support, a law review article from a distinguished professor, Robert George and John Finnis, who is the expert at proposing that the 14th Amendment include, at some point in a decision, unborn persons. But that's punishing the woman is not what that law review article and Robert George intends. In fact, Professor George has written that the history of the pro-life movement and its laws were right, and most pro-lifers are right today. The movement, the great human rights movement of our time, has rightly sought to save babies, not punish women. And it has rightly understood that we can save unborn babies without threatening to punish their mothers. In short, the Equal Protection Clause of the U.S. and state constitutions have no relevance to House Bill 1373, and they certainly would not save it from a constitutional challenge. The North Dakota Supreme Court has found that the North Dakota Constitution includes a right to an abortion to preserve the life or health of the mother. Although the meaning of health remains unclear, it is clear that HB 1373 has no exceptions for health. On its face, House Bill 1373 would be considered unconstitutional. The bill also leaves intact the state's existing statutes that prohibit abortion, unborn homicide, and unborn assault. The conflicting provisions and definitions would provide abortionists another ground to challenge the law as unconstitutional. And that flaw could also jeopardize the state's existing laws to protect unborn children. Moreover, the bill's exceptions for abortions to save the life of the mother are not clearly defined. That makes the bill likely to be challenged for another constitutional reason, that is unconstitutionally vague. Mr. Chairman, Representative Bolinske raised a very good question that's related to this about ectopic pregnancies. The reason ectopic pregnancies are covered as an exception in our abortion laws is because it was carefully drafted to exclude ectopic pregnancies and molar pregnancies. That's how you draft a law. This law is so vague, it relies on the action and intent without the clarification. It's an example of, it's not so much about how you feel sometimes about life or how you feel about criminalizing the woman. It's whether this is a good bill or not, and this bill has a lot of problems. These constitutional problems are immediately apparent. Under North Dakota law, in cases like this, if the state loses, it has to pay the challenger's attorney's fees and costs. To give you an example of these costs, the parties currently challenging the state's existing abortion laws are seeking $141,988 plus for just the trial portion of the case. The costs associated with defending human life are sometimes worth it. But in a case like this, where the law is so obviously unconstitutional, we might as well write a check to the abortionists now. Now, proponents of House Bill 1373 contend that all these legal risks are necessary because mail-order abortion drugs have resulted in more abortions being done on North Dakota women than ever before. Specifically, the claim has been made that in 2023, 1,000 unborn children from North Dakota were killed by abortions that, quote, remained legal, end quote, under North Dakota law. According to the claim, 780 of these abortions were done out of state, and 221 were done with mail-order abortion pills. There are many problems with this assertion. First, abortions done on North Dakota residents out of state are not abortions that remained legal in North Dakota. They were legal under the laws of the other state. An individual cannot be charged under North Dakota law for an act that occurs in another state, even if it's illegal here. And House Bill 1373 will not change that. It cannot change that. Second, the claim that 221 women used an abortion pill in 2023 is highly suspect. The figure is derived from the total number of presumably pregnant women who requested an abortion pill from a national abortion pill provider during the 2 months immediately after the Dobbs decision in July of 2022. We do not know how many of these women actually used the pills. Moreover, the pro-abortion groups had manufactured a false narrative that abortions would be immediately banned and women should quickly order pills and stock up. The numbers do not account for this panic effect that occurred in the few months immediately after Dobbs. In fact, abortion was legal and available in North Dakota during those months. The clinic had not gone across the river, and a court had enjoined the law, so it was in effect. There would have been no reason for women to seek mail-ordered abortion drugs at that time. Nevertheless, proponents would like us to believe that the Dobbs decision and the mere possibility that our abortion law would go into effect immediately caused a 26% increase in the number of North Dakota women getting abortions. The claim is, quite frankly, unbelievable. Many factors contribute to why abortion numbers go up or down, but no credible study has ever concluded that abortion restrictions cause abortion numbers to go up. Indeed, research shows the opposite. We share this information not because we want to attack the bill's well-meaning supporters. We share this information because it's relevant to the decision before you. Supporters of House Bill 1373 are asking this legislative body to depart from the wisdom and experience of every major pro-life organization in the country, criminalize all women who get abortions, and place our existing laws in jeopardy so the state can stop 221 phantom abortions that no one can show actually exist. Perhaps these abortions do exist and are by their nature clandestine and impossible to prove. If so, they would also be impossible to prove if House Bill 1373 was enacted, something one of the supporters had already admitted. So passage of House Bill 1373 would therefore accomplish nothing while destroying years of hard work to build a culture of life in North Dakota. We realize that this may be a difficult decision for those who oppose abortion and a difficult issue. We all want abortion to come to an end. However, we cannot embrace the proposal recommended in this bill. It is misguided, legally flawed, built upon faulty premises, ultimately pointless, and harmful. Anyone who is genuinely pro-life can, in good conscience, oppose this bill. We urge a do not pass recommendation to House Bill 1373. Mr. Chairman, I know that we're running short on time, but if necessary, I can try to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Dawson? Representative Bolinske.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question. I was just wondering, and this is mostly my own curiosity, do you know how we're able to track the abortion pills being sent into our state?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Bolinske, it's a very good question, and it's something a lot of pro-life groups are working on, and we're working on too. The best information we have comes from the abortion providers themselves out of state, and there are some studies. But those studies are also flawed when you count up the numbers. When extrapolated in North Dakota, one of them, this is a 26% increase, one of them would have 40-something% increase, which doesn't make any sense because the number of abortions in Minnesota that we know are being done on North Dakota residents is roughly the same as it was before we had the abortion law, which is about 830, 820. So why suddenly would there be a 26 or 40% increase? Now, the related question is what we can do about the mail order, and that is something a lot of smart legal minds are working on.
Further questions? Representative Rios.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the idea of giving mothers blanket immunity, to me, sounds more pro-choice than pro-life, because technically you're giving more people a choice. And if this bill were to pass, wouldn't it be better to do like a case-by-case basis? And with that being said, an example I like to think of is hypothetically if like the CEO of like Planned Parenthood came to North Dakota, came to the state capitol, and she shouts, "I'm having an abortion," and chugs a bunch of abortion pills. Is she a victim? Should she be prosecuted, or should she be exempt? I don't know. That's my question.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Rios, it's a mistake to call our existing law giving them immunity. What it does is go as far as necessary to prohibit abortions the best we can. In another complete environment, it might be a different situation. But quite frankly, if someone was doing that, I look at her as someone in pain. That's an act of desperation and pain and anger. And that's in this culture of lies about abortion and a society that has pitted women against their unborn child for so long. We're not at the point where we can assume that women are making a rational but evil act in every case. What we need to do is stop it from happening. And yes, mail order abortion issues is an issue. And we're not going to just let that go. But this is not the bill to address that.
Further questions? Representative Hendrix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Dawson, for your testimony. What it might be a difficult question to answer, but what would you possibly envision, if not this law, as a way to address some of the chemical mail order abortions?
Chairman Ruby, Representative Hendrix, I don't have a specific suggestion. I can tell you that it's something discussed in the pro-life legal community among pro-life directors and right-to-life groups and their attorneys. And some of this has to do with federal laws and regulations. It's a very complicated legal problem. But there are minds working on it. It's not like we're ignoring the problem.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Mr. I just want to, can I expand on that? In the meantime, we must do everything we can, legally, culturally, in our businesses, everywhere, to help make abortion unthinkable.
Okay. See no other questions. Thank you. I'd just like to be known there's 25 minutes left of opposition.
Chairman Ruby and members of the committee, my name is Marnie Walt, and I stand to introduce 3 of our medical providers who will speak to separate concerns that they have with this bill. We have Dr. Christina Broadwell and Dr. Stephen Christensen, our reproductive endocrinologist, and nurse practitioner Allison Harrison.
Okay.
Their testimony is online, and I'll hand it out as well.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Ruby and members of the House of Human Services Committee. My name is Christina Broadwell, and I'm a reproductive endocrinologist currently practicing and providing IVF care in the state of North Dakota. I grew up in North Dakota on a farm outside of Valley City with my brother David, my mother Mary, and father Keith, who also grew up on that same farm. I attended Valley City High School, and upon graduation attended Minnesota State University Moorhead. I had the privilege after that of receiving my medical education at the University of North Dakota, as well as within the clinics and hospitals throughout this state. I completed clinical rotations in Grand Forks, Candu, Fargo, Oaks, and Minot, throughout my 4 years of medical school. And I know there are many legislators that have worked very hard in the past to provide that 4-year medical education to North Dakota students, and I am grateful for their work. I have been practicing in the field of reproductive endocrinology and infertility for 13 years, of which the last 5 have been within the state of North Dakota. I consider it a privilege to give back to the state of North Dakota that provided me with so much and allowed me to achieve my dream of becoming a physician. Despite what has been said, please know it is not my intention to be here to manipulate or to lie to you. I believe part of giving back is to educate and to advocate for my patients who receive reproductive care, as well as IVF. I am here to oppose House Bill 1373. One of the primary concerns I have is that the bill's changed definitions of unborn child do not consider the natural biological processes involved in spontaneous conception as well as in vitro fertilization. I worry this would likely mean the end of this vital service for would-be parents in North Dakota. I worry for my patients, my colleagues, and the clinic. Please allow me to take a few minutes, to explain the IVF process. A woman is born with every egg that she will ever have, but the large majority of these are not accessible until an egg kind of wakes up from a type of hibernation and becomes part of a resting or antral follicle. Each month, a group of these resting or antral follicles can be stimulated by a hormone called follicle-stimulating hormone. Due to feedback within a reproductive system, usually only one small antral follicle grows into a mature follicle that can release an egg, a process called ovulation. After this step, it can be possible then for a sperm to fertilize that egg within the fallopian tube. Each month, this leads to one opportunity for egg and sperm to combine to create a structure known as a zygote. And I have included an image of that provided below. And it is demonstrated on that right image. Following this, the zygote needs to undergo cell divisions to create an embryo. These steps are necessary in order for implantation within the uterus and the start of a clinically detectable pregnancy. It is important to know that many eggs may fertilize but do not continue to grow and develop into an embryo. Even if fertilized eggs or a zygote develops into an embryo, not all embryos implant to create a pregnancy. While it is true that every baby born developed from a fertilized egg that matured into an embryo, a substantial number of fertilized eggs and embryos naturally expire long before ever developing into a fetus, a baby, or an adult capable of speaking to this committee today. During the IVF or in vitro fertilization process, medication is used to help stimulate the growth of multiple follicles within the ovary. This medication is given daily and administered by the patient and or her partner for approximately 10 to 12 days while we monitor the response with ultrasounds and blood work. The number of follicles that grow is unique to an individual's response to medication and can really vary quite dramatically. When ready, the eggs are retrieved by a surgical procedure prior to their own release or ovulation. These eggs are then transferred to the embryology lab where highly trained staff combine them with sperm to promote fertilization. After an egg retrieval, only 70% of mature eggs will fertilize in normal fashion. And of those fertilized eggs, only 50% continue to develop into an embryo, which can then be transferred into a uterus or cryopreserved for later use. Although not every couple requires IVF therapy to conceive and build their families, over 3% of all babies born in the United States each year are conceived with the use of IVF. This results in approximately 100 births per year, and millions of individuals have benefited from this amazing technology since its inception. I hope you get to hear from some of them today as well. Their stories inspire me every day. We are lucky. We are lucky to have skilled, educated individuals within the state to provide this care for our population. In the last 5 years, Our clinical work and IVF treatments have resulted in 150 to 180 births a year to families within North Dakota and surrounding states. Over the last 30 years, our clinic has helped bring 2,000 babies into families with the start of this treatment in the state. If this bill were to pass, medical professionals like me who go to work every day to help people who desperately want to raise a family could be charged with homicide or be civilly liable for the failed development of a fertilized egg or zygote to create an embryo or to develop into an embryo, and the failure of a transferred embryo to implant and to develop into a viable pregnancy. Even though these are natural and uncontrollable aspects of reproductive biology, with and without using IVF therapy. Furthermore, I am worried there is potential for women to be held accountable for failed embryo transfers as well, even though they did nothing wrong and had no control over that outcome. This bill would place an unjust burden on patients and create significant emotional and legal distress for those already facing the challenges of infertility. Thank you for your time and consideration. I strongly urge you to vote no on this bill, and I will stand for any questions you might have.
Are there any questions? Representative Hendrix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony. Looking at the language of the bill, is there any way that you think it could be amended or written in such a way to protect the IVF process as you see it?
Yeah, no, and I would be happy to work with legal experts and those that can draft language for appropriate bill construction at this time to the definition of an unborn child as occurring at the union of an egg and a sperm, I believe, is too severe. And I believe that that would impair our ability to perform IVF as it currently stands. And I would be happy to work with individuals to help draft a better bill.
If I may continue, I know we're just spitballing here, but like, would you suspect that if it was written perhaps to define conception and implantation, do you think that would cover it, or would there still be concerns over
I think
possibly discarding embryos or whatever?
I think there still could be concerns, and I would also want to work in cooperation with legal experts on how to best draft that language to protect both patients as well as healthcare providers in this state.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Rios.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are you saying it's impossible to conduct IVF without the discarding of the fertilized embryos in the lab? Or does that mean that it's just maybe bad for business without proper standard of care? Are there clinics out there that could do just one fertilized embryo for the parent to avoid this? Is that an option if a Christian couple wants to do IVF and they said, "We'll just do one egg"? Is that possible?
Yeah, I think that I believe at the start of your question, I think what concerns me the most is not that we won't be able to discard embryos, but that there is a natural attrition or a natural loss of these reproductive developmental stages that just occurs that we could be held liable for. It is not something that is intentional or discarded with that intention. It is that formation of that fertilized egg or zygote does not always create an embryo, and even if only one egg is retrieved and fertilized, if that is the new definition of an unborn child, and that fertilized egg does not continue in its development stages to an embryo, are we then liable for the loss of that? And as the law is currently written, I believe that we are not.
Representative Kiefert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Christy, in your profession, is it possible to rule out the embryos that aren't viable or are more viable before they're fertilized?
You know, I think we look for structural development of both eggs, zygotes, and early embryos to determine which we think have the most potential to continue to develop and result in a healthy pregnancy. That is not perfect. However, there is no signs in those stages that guarantee that is a viable embryo. We can see some embryos have more organization, better arrangements of cells, but we do not know that that will result in a viable live birth. We can see fragmentation or breakdown of cellular components of an embryo that can decrease those chances of live birth and healthy pregnancy. Sometimes that is extensive enough where we see that that embryo is no longer viable. Sometimes it is not.
You may continue.
What I brought up earlier about the spark of life, that's rather new research and discoveries and whatnot, but that spark is released after conception of the fertilization of the embryo, so that really wouldn't help, sort out the eggs that are more viable. They would already be fertilized, and they said the ones with the brighter spark are the more apt to survive. I don't know if they're doing that in this country yet or not, but I'd be surprised if they don't know about it.
Yeah. Not to my awareness, does that chemical reaction or spark of life serve as a prognostic indicator? I am not aware of any of that. I'm not aware that that has shown that that is truly a viable embryo.
Further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Ruby and committee members, my name is Allie Harrison, and I am here to oppose House Bill 1373. I am a woman that was born and raised in North Dakota. I am a mom of 2 beautiful boys, and I have 3 children in heaven from spontaneous miscarriage. I received my bachelor's degree in nursing at the University of North Dakota. I worked in women's health as a labor and delivery nurse, bringing life into this world for 5 years before returning to graduate school to get my master's degree and board certification as a women's health nurse practitioner. I chose to continue my career in healthcare in North Dakota as a woman taking care of other women. I am a healthcare provider that cares deeply about the men, women, and families of this state. I am a healthcare provider that is standing here today providing testimony to oppose a bill that threatens to end important medical treatments for patients in our state. Thank you for the opportunity to explain how House Bill 1373 will harm North Dakotan men and women who need specialized services to create a family. I have had the honor of providing care to women and men who suffer from infertility for close to 10 years now. Every single day is filled with highs and lows, happiness and sorrow, and an unexplainable feeling that only a woman who wants to become a mom can explain. And for those of us sitting across from the patients each and every day in that exam room, an unexplainable passion for helping them achieve their dream of having a child. House Bill 1373 threatens to make this amazing work impossible by using definitions that would create indefensible criminal and civil liability for practitioners and prospective parents. If passed, House Bill 1373 will put North Dakota's only fertility clinic that provides IVF in jeopardy of needing to close its doors. This is a bill that will impact 1 in 6 couples that suffer from infertility. Listen to that number again, 1 in 6 people in North Dakota. This bill will also impact patients with a cancer diagnosis or a rare genetic condition that need IVF to conceive. We serve families across the entire state of North Dakota. In 2024 alone, our clinic provided fertility services to 150 individuals from Grand Forks County, 142 individuals from Burleigh County, 86 from Ward County, 130 from Stark and Morton County, These are your constituents. These are our North Dakota residents. It is certainly worth noting that as of 9:30 this morning, 135 written testimonies were in favor of this bill. 31% of those written testimonies in favor of this bill came from people outside of North Dakota, Minnesota, and South Dakota. These are not regions that we serve with our care that we provide. As of 9:30 this morning, 194 written testimonies in opposition of this bill came in. 98% of them reside in North Dakota, Minnesota, and South Dakota. These are your constituents, many of which are here today and would like to have the time to tell their story. Sponsors of this bill have suggested that passing this bill will not ban IVF and that creating embryos, freezing them, and then implanting them will remain completely legal under this bill. While this bill does provide a short list of exceptions, it uses problematic definitions that would subject a fertility provider to insurmountable criminal and civil liability risks for natural processes that would make it impossible to continue offering these services. No IVF provider would be able to use their highly educated, board-certified, medically licensed background to provide IVF treatments without risk of litigation. During IVF, a sperm and an egg are placed together with the goal that fertilization occurs. Not all eggs fertilize. If fertilization occurs, the cells begin to divide, and if the division of cells continues, an embryo can result. Not all fertilized eggs develop into embryos. In fact, only about 75% of eggs fertilize, and of those fertilized eggs, only about 50% continue to develop into an embryo, which then has to be transferred into the uterus. I'd like to break that down a little bit. That's a lot of numbers. If a woman were to get 15 eggs retrieved during IVF, we hope that 10 will fertilize. And we hope that we may get 5 embryos from that cycle. Each embryo that is transferred into the uterus has somewhere between 20 and 60% chance of implanting. This is dependent on age and other variables for that patient. It's hard to say how many embryos each patient would need based on these statistics. It's hard to know how many embryos we would need to get for each individual to create the family size that they have dreamed of. Like any medical diagnosis, medical treatments work well for some and they don't work well for others. This bill implies that it provides legal protection to medical providers if a loss of life occurs during diagnostic testing. An important clarification with this is that IVF is not diagnostic testing. This bill also provides protection in cases of spontaneous miscarriage. Spontaneous miscarriage is defined per the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists as a non-viable pregnancy in the uterus without a heartbeat. A fertilized egg is not a pregnancy in the uterus. A fertilized egg that does not make it to an embryo stage is not a pregnancy in the uterus. An embryo that is placed into a uterus during an embryo transfer that does not result in a positive pregnancy test is not a pregnancy in the uterus. None of these scenarios would be defined as a spontaneous miscarriage. However, with how this bill is written, all of these scenarios would be considered a loss of life. All of these scenarios put the patient and the provider at risk of litigation and places them in the same category as criminals. IVF is a treatment for a medical diagnosis, a diagnosis I wish nobody had. IVF services bring life into this world. This bill limits the ability of medical providers to treat their patients. Infertility patients are warriors. They are seeking one specific victory at the end of a very taxing physical, mental, and highly financially burdening war. And that victory being the ability to become moms and dads and to create a family. Committee members and Chairman Ruby, I strongly urge you to place yourselves in the shoes of the patients that are sharing their stories today. What would your friend, your daughter, your brother, your niece, or your son say if their ability to have a child with the assistance of infertility treatments in North Dakota was taken away if this bill passes? Now picture yourself in their shoes again. Your family member or your friend having the ability to receive the medical treatments that they need in order to create the family that they have dreamed of. By defeating this bill now, we can make sure that the dreams of many North Dakotans to raise a family of their own are protected within our borders. Please show your support for your constituents, your North Dakotan patients hoping to start families, by voting no on this bill. Thank you for your consideration.
Any questions for Ms. Harrison? I see none. Thank you. We will take one more testimony, and then at that time we will give everybody the opportunity to get on record as we did on the proponent side.
Good morning, Chairman Ruby and honorable members of the House Human Services Committee. My name is Mark Geortsma, and I'm the Executive Director of North Dakota Family Alliance Legislative Action. On behalf of our organization, we are opposed to House Bill 1373 and respectfully request you render a do not pass on this bill. I'd also like to refer you to the last page of my testimony, which contains our organization's formal position on this issue, which was issued in April of 2024. As you can probably hear, my voice is about gone, so that's probably good news for the people behind me. The thing I'd like to stress, I'm not going to read everything. As a Christian organization, we believe in protecting life at all stages. We also believe that the mother is often the abortion's second victim. Similar to women who are victims of human trafficking, we believe the focus should be on punishing the source of the criminal activity. In this case, the abortionists who profit from killing innocent children by providing abortion drugs, and not the women who suffer because of it. From a biblical standpoint, the issue is about balancing justice with mercy. Numerous biblical texts clearly point to situations where it's more important to side with mercy over justice, and you'll see them listed there. Each side in this debate can quote biblical verses and debate theological arguments forever, and yet at the end of the day will likely hold the same viewpoints as they did at the beginning of the discussion. As Christians in America, we seek to be salt and light in a fallen world. It should not be Christian against Christian, mother against child, but Christian values against our country's abortion complex. And I would say, kind of a final statement about justice and mercy. For those of us who are Christian, I would encourage you to think of the most significant act in the Bible that you can. That is the crucifixion of Christ on the cross. That is the ultimate mercy over justice. Justice says we should be there. Christ, through mercy, was there on our behalf. I'm not going to go through a lot of the rest of my testimony. I would point out that if this were enacted, women would probably be found guilty of AA felonies. There's no statute of limitation on that. They would be jailed. You could have up to 1,500 people who need to go into jails. That would increase the Department of Corrections rehabilitations number of prisoners by 73%. It's just simply unworkable from a very pragmatic standpoint. So thank you so much for the chance to testify. I'll stand for any questions.
Representative Rios.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Geortsma, do you know what the golden rule is?
Chairman Ruby and Representative Nico's, the golden rule. Yes, I do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the golden rule, treat others the way you like to be treated, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, in everything do to others what you would have them do to you. What do these unborn children, what exempts them from that?
Chairman Ruby and Representative Rios, I look at the biblical issue from a holistic viewpoint. You're taking one or two verses, right? and certainly I support that. I believe in it. However, from a holistic viewpoint, the Bible makes it very clear that there's mercy and justice. You look at the Old Testament, and we serve a God who told his people of Israel, go wipe out this nation. On the other hand, you look at the New Testament, and he's a God of love. Love trumping the justice side of it. He says, go and sin no more to the adulterous woman. He doesn't say you should be stoned. Paul, who started the first century church, he stoned Christians. He should by right have been killed. However, God used him to start the first century church. So holistically, I would still say that it's mercy over justice.
Further questions? Representative Kiefert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I should have probably asked this question earlier, but it just came to me now. But a couple has 3 to 5 viable embryos that are extra they're not going to use. So instead of destroying them, is there a pathway that they can put them up for adoption, like to a couple that can't produce a viable embryo of their own?
Chairman Ruby and Representative Kiefert, unfortunately, I'm not the right person to ask that question to. I have no medical background, and I don't know the process they go through. I'm sorry.
Further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So at this time, we're over our hour time limit, but if you would like to step up and say, I oppose this bill, then this is your time. We don't take neutral testimony.
Stephen Christensen, infertility physician from Fargo. I oppose this bill, and you have my written testimony.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I'm Melissa Hauer. I'm the General Counsel for the North Dakota Hospital Association. We oppose the bill as well, and my written testimony is online. Thank you.
Chairman Ruby and honorable members of the committee, I oppose this bill because I think it will push the women underground that need to find healing. I've been through an experience myself with a good friend, and she was so afraid. And I would hate to see that coupled with the chance that she could go to jail, because I don't think that they would probably have to go someplace else.
Can I get your name quick?
Ruth Jortsma.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Ruby, members of the committee, my name is Ellen Johnson. I'm a licensed certified genetic counselor that practices at Sanford Health's Reproductive Medicine Clinic. I oppose House Bill 1373. You'll find my written testimony online, and I would love to answer any questions if you need to contact me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am Dina Butcher, and 11 years ago I led the opposition to Measure 1, which the language of which is similar to this bill, and I still I feel that this is as ill-advised as the citizens of North Dakota at that time overwhelmingly voted it down. I pass my.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Emily Lindquist. I'm a lifelong resident of North Dakota. I've had 6 miscarriages, and I will never hold my living baby if this bill passes. I'm using IVF to grow my family, and I promise you, nobody values the life of the unborn more than people who have experienced loss. I oppose this bill.
Thank you.
My name is Braden Lindquist. I'm a lifelong resident of North Dakota as well, and Emily Lindquist's husband. I'm recommending do not pass on this bill.
Thank you.
Alexa Swanston. You'll find my testimony online. I stand in opposition of 1373 and its intentional vagueness that would bar IVF services. Thank you.
Dr. Anna Tobias, I'm a high-risk pregnancy specialist practicing in the state at Sanford. I'm opposed to this bill. I'd be happy to answer any questions. You could contact me after the fact. Why?
Okay, thank you.
Donna Thronson with the North Dakota Medical Association. We stand in opposition to this bill. Thank you.
My name is Lisa Hermosillo of Minot Air Force Base, and I am opposed to this bill for a number of reasons. North Dakota needs to stop being a pro-control, pro-regulation state. Thank you. And my written statement is submitted as well online.
Okay. Is there anyone else that'd like to be on record? I would ask that there is a sign-in roster that is, I don't know if it's on, I don't know exactly where it's at right now, but please sign in if you did speak. You can also sign in and not speak, but you can continue.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, my name is Jordan Duraney, and I am a lifelong member, or a lifelong resident of North Dakota. I'm a wife, and I'm due to start IVF next month. I'm also an emergency physician in this city. I have strong opinions against this bill, which I have written and submitted, and I encourage you to read it. Please listen to the majority of your constituents today. We all have legitimate reasons for why we feel the way that we feel. I encourage you to vote in opposition of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, at this time, we'll close the hearing on House Bill 1373.